feed to make sure that we're on.
Okay.
Good.
It's picking up now, so it should be any minute now.
Yeah, it says you're recording, Joanne, so
Yep.
you should be good.
Yep, we're all set.
All right, there you go. Okay. Well, I show 7:30. You still wanna? I don't think we have to wait any longer.
No, we don't have to wait any longer.
Let me
I
get,
got a few more people to let in. Hang on.
all right.
You can go ahead. I just have to let
Going
people
to.
in.
All right, let's start. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Zoning Commission of the City of Danbury on July 27th, 2021. Let the record show we are beginning at 7:30. And I will begin with the roll call. Commissioner Almeida,
Here.
Commissioner Fay,
Present.
Commissioner Hawley,
Here.
Commissioner Hylinski,
Here.
Commissioner Jowdy. Commissioner Jowdy's here.
Where is he?
Commissioner Kelly is here. Commissioner Mazzy. I see Commissioner Mazzy. They're all
You're
everybody.
muted. Yeah, there you go.
Yes, I'm here.
Commissioner Malillo
Here.
here. Commissioner Eriquez.
Here.
Commissioner Marchand.
Here.
Commissioner Nejame is absent. We wish him the best. He had a little health matter or injury. Hurry up and get better, Tommy. And I am Chairman Haddad. The next regular meeting is scheduled for August 10th, 2021. If we can all please join Commissioner Malillo in the Pledge of Allegiance. You have your flag ready, Rob? Beautiful.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner Malillo. I am now going to read in the legal notice for this evening. The legal notice application to be heard by the Zoning Commission at a public hearing in a web-based meeting hosted on Zoom. Notice is hereby given that the Zoning Commission of the City of Danbury will hold a public hearing commencing at 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, July 27, 2020, in a web-based meeting hosted on Zoom to consider the following matter. Petition of Sharon B. Calitro, Planning Director, to amend sections 2B and 10J of the zoning regulations, in parentheses, moratorium on the acceptance of applications, amendments, petitions, or issuance of zoning permits for or related to cannabis establishments and new definitions. A copy of this application is on file in the Planning and Zoning Office for public inspection. Parties and interested citizens shall have the opportunity to be heard at this time. Agenda to be posted will include instructions to access the Zoom meeting and application materials. Theodore J. Haddad Jr., Chairman, posted on the city website and town clerk's office on July 13th, 2021. Published in the News Times on July 16th, 2021 and July 23rd, 2021. Purchase order number 2022-174. Commission members, everyone has received the minutes of the June 22nd meeting. I'd like to see if I have a motion to accept those minutes.
Motion to accept the minutes as written.
Thank you. Motion made by Ms. Fay. Is there a second? Mr. Kelly, any discussion, comments, additions, deletions? Not hearing any? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? For the record, I did not hear any opposition and I did not see any hands go up when I asked for opposition. Before we begin, let me just go over our procedure. The procedure of tonight's zoning commission meeting is like every other zoning commission meeting that we have in the common council chambers, except, as you know, this is a Zoom meeting. It will go a little bit slower. We look for hands. There's several of us look for hands, the moderator and myself. We also listen for voices. We ask that everyone's mics are muted during the public hearing, unless any of the commission members have a question, or somebody wants to speak when they're called upon. The way the meeting runs is we're going to have a public hearing. We're going to have those wishing to speak in favor of the public hearing speak. Those wishing to speak in opposition to the public hearing speak. Then there will be a chance for rebuttal by those wishing to speak in favor. And then one of two things are going to happen. Either the commission will vote to close the public hearing, or the commission will vote to continue the public hearing. Everyone will have a chance to speak. There's generally no time frame, but we do ask to not be repetitive. I also would like to ask, since we have some people who have been waiting here for several weeks for the commission to get enough of a quorum, I'm going to ask if we can get a motion to deviate from tonight's agenda and go to the first petition under old business, which is a petition of Newtown Road LLC, Maria Emanuel Andre, Whitney Avenue, K12254, for change of zone from RA8 to CG20. That was a March submission. Is anyone willing to make that motion? I see Mr. Kelly's hand. Mr. Kelly's willing to make that motion. Is there a second? The second by Ms. Hylinski. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I did not see or hear any opposition. So tonight what we will do is we will go right to the petition of Newtown Road LLC. This is under old business. Maria Emanuel Andre, Whitney Avenue, K12254, for change of zone from RA8 to CG20 March submission. And before I do that, let me just go over the eligible commission members. I have eligible as Almeida, Fay, Haddad, Hawley, Hylinski, Jowdy, Kelly, Mazzy, Malillo, Eriquez, and Merchan. Everyone here tonight is eligible. I don't have to see any of the alternates because all of our full 9 are here. And I also want to mention for the record that Commissioners Kelly, Mazzy, and Merchan were not present at the May 25th meeting, but they did watch the video and they did review all the documents. Therefore, they are eligible. So seated tonight for this petition will be the 9 regular members. Commission members, any comments? Anyone have any comments on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Malillo.
I have a motion I would like to offer.
Thank you. Please do.
I would like to make a motion to deny this petition for the following reasons. First of all, and Joanne, I will email these reasons to you so you don't need to worry about catching up on my writing. The first reason, number 1, it conflicts with the Plan of Conservation and Development as the POCD map designates this as single family. Reason number 2, this would result in an encroachment on a residential neighborhood. Reason number 3, Whitney Avenue is not suitable for the uses allowed in a CG20 zone that are not allowed in an RA8 zone. And then reason number 4, this area of Newtown Road has not seen significant enough changes since the original 1988 denial to rezone these parcels of land.
Thank you very much, Mr. Malillo. Commission members, there is a motion to deny this petition made by Commissioner Malillo with reasons as stated. Is there a second to this motion to deny? Is there?
I'll second the motion to deny.
I see a second by Mr. Mazzy. Commission members, is a motion made to deny with a second? The second is also accepting the reasons to deny. Is there any other discussion?
Mr. Haddad,
Mr. Malillo.
under discussion, I would just like to add that I understand the applicant's concern with regarding the use. The biggest concern I have is, as you know, we can't condition a use, and there are so many other uses that could be available to this. So while the use might be allowed in a residential zone as well as the CG20, there are significant uses in the CG20 zone which definitely would not be compatible with this parcel. So that's the main reason for denial.
Thank you very much, Mr. Melillo. Commission members, here's an opportunity for you to also weigh in on this. Commission members, any other comments? Any other comments? I do not hear any, and I'm looking and do not see any. How many pages do we have here tonight?
2.
We're good. Okay, commission members, I'm going to take a roll call on this. There's a motion to deny with reasons and a second. So a yes is to deny. A yes is to deny. Commissioner Melillo,
Yes.
Commissioner Mazzy,
Yes.
thank you. Yes, take off your mics, unmute yourself if you would, please. Commissioner Almeida,
Yes.
Commissioner Fay,
Yes.
Commissioner Hawley,
Yes.
Commissioner Hylinski,
Yes.
Commissioner Jowdy,
He's not maybe.
Commissioner Jowdy,
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9-0. This petition is denied. Thank you, commission members. We went out of order here, so let me get back into my order. We have a public hearing this evening. It's a petition of Sharon B. Calitro, Planning Director, to amend.
Excuse me, Mr. Haddad.
Yes,
So for those people who were here for Whitney Avenue, I just want to let them know that we have concluded our business with Whitney Avenue. So if they wanted to leave, they could. That they're more than welcome to stay if they're interested in the second petition. But just wanted to let them know that we will be moving forward.
thank you. And I'll mention it again after this one here in case anybody logs on thinking that it would be later on. Thank you, Mr. Malolo. The first public hearing this evening is a petition of Sharon B. Calitro, Planning Director, to amend sections 2B and 10J of the zoning regulations, in parentheses, moratorium on the acceptance of applications, amendments.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry. Sydney's waving his arms at you.
Oh, his mic is off. Mr. Almeida. Unmute.
I don't know what
Can you hear me?
doing.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, before we proceed on the next item, I'm going to have to bow out for the rest of the meeting. I just wanted to make sure I was here for the Newtown Whitney Ave vote.
So you're going to log off now.
Yes.
Okay.
Much. I appreciate your earlier participation. Commission members, I'm going to seat, Joanne, do we know who's on deck for this? I think Mr. Marchand sat in last time, so.
Yeah, so it'd be Mr. Eriquez.
Mr. Eriquez, I'm looking for you. Do I see you somewhere?
He's next to you.
Okay. Mr.
Yeah,
Eriquez,
he's there.
you sit in on this public hearing for Commissioner Almeida.
Yes.
Okay? Thank you. Let me get back to the public hearing reading. Petition Sharon B. Calitro, Planning Director, to amend sections 2B and 10J of the zoning regulations, in parentheses, moratorium on the acceptance of applications, amendments, petitions, or issuance of zoning permits for or related to cannabis establishments and new definition. Let me, if I can, begin by reading the Planning Commission recommendation on this. The Planning Commission recommendation is dated July 22nd, 2021. To Theodore J. Haddad Jr., Chairman, Danbury Zoning Commission, from Arnold E. Finaldi Jr., Chairman, Danbury Planning Commission. Regarding 8.3a referral petition of Sharon B. Calitro, Planning Director, to amend sections 2B and 10J of the zoning regulations, in parentheses, moratorium on the acceptance of applications, amendments, petitions, or issuance of zoning permits for or related to cannabis establishments and new definitions. At the web-based Zoom meeting held on July 21st, 2021, the City of Danbury Planning Commission voted to give the above referenced petition a positive recommendation for the following reasons. This will give staff and the zoning commission an adequate amount of time to properly evaluate the state legislation as approved and to consider the adoption of amendments to the zoning regulations of the city of Danbury for local control of these uses, with a goal of maintaining and protecting the public health, safety, and welfare of the residents of the community. The motion to give this a positive recommendation was made by Mr. Uris, seconded by Mr. Chioccio, and passed by voice vote with 5 ayes from Mr. Chioccio, Mrs. Hofstadter, Mr. Sylvain, Mr. Uris, and Chairman Spinaldi. Additionally, I'd like to read in 83B Westcog. There was a letter sent from Ms. Reed on July 5th, 2021 to Westcog. Attached, please find a copy of the above referenced petition for an amendment of the City of Danbury zoning regulations pursuant to Section 3B of the Connecticut General Statutes and Executive Order 7I, Section 19 of the Zoning Commission of the City of Danbury hereby requests a recommendation on the above referenced matter. We did receive a reply dated July 15, 2021 to Joanne Reed, Planning Assistant, from Kristen Floberg, Planner, regarding Connecticut statutory referral to Westcog from Danbury attached zoning amendment. Date July 15, 2021. Thank you for submitting the attached referral to Westcog. The opinion of Westcog staff is that the proposal is of local interest and with minimal intermunicipal impact. Therefore, it is not being forwarded to adjacent municipalities, and the regional staff is making no comment. So now I have this goes over here. And Ms. Calitro, did you want to read in the staff report?
I can do that.
Read it in. Don't have it?
Okay.
I'll read it in, or you? You got it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, thank you.
I can read it. Thank you. To the City of Danbury Planning Commission, City of Danbury Zoning Commission, from Sharon B. Calitro, AICP Planning Director, dated June 22nd, 2021, regarding zoning amendments to Section 2B and Section 10J, moratorium on the acceptance of applications, amendments, petitions, or issuance of zoning permits for or related to cannabis establishments, and new definitions. The Department of Planning and Zoning submits to the Zoning Commission for consideration and action the following proposed amendments to the zoning regulations for the issuance of a temporary moratorium on the acceptance of applications or issuance of zoning permits for or related to adult use cannabis establishments within the City of Danbury. Definitions related thereto are proposed to be added to Section 2 of the zoning regulations. The reason for the temporary moratorium is outlined in Section 10J of the proposed amendment. We urge adoption of these amendments. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Ms. Calitro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, I'm Sharon Calitro. I'm the Planning Director for the City of Danbury. As you know, on June 22nd, 2021, Governor Lamont signed SB 1201. That bill is entitled An Act Responsibly and Equitably Regulating Adult Use Cannabis. It became effective July 1st, 2021, with certain provisions of the law, including sales, becoming effective at a later date. The act is recognized as June's Special Session Public Act 21-1. The text of the act is about 295 pages. It covers a wide spectrum of topics related to the legalization of cannabis, including personal consumption, state licensing, workplace considerations, tenant and landlord rights, use in public spaces, police powers, and certain municipal responsibilities, including zoning. The law defines cannabis establishment. The law also provides municipalities with options in terms of regulating the location of cannabis establishments. And in Danbury, as you know, legislating and regulating land use has and continues to be the purview of the Zoning Commission. So the new law provides options for the regulation of these cannabis establishments. And there are basically 3 options. There's the do nothing option, in which the cannabis establishments, as indicated in the law, has to be treated no differently than any similar use, although the law, again, doesn't really define what similar means. You can prohibit cannabis establishment uses. And again, this is related to the land use aspect of it and not the other components of the law. So you could outright prohibit cannabis establishment uses. Or you could permit cannabis establishment uses subject to certain regulations, and those include reasonable restrictions on the hours of operation and signage and proximity to other uses as described in Connecticut General Statute Section 30-46, and those are the ones similar to alcohol sales. And then, of course, there's a provision in this new law that provides for a voter referendum, and that is if 10% of the Danbury electors petition for a referendum under certain specific worded questions within a certain time frame prior to the election, the question has to appear on the election ballot. And those questions are whether to allow the sale of adult use cannabis, whether to allow the sale under one or more of the licenses that are allowed under the new law, or whether to prohibit the sale. So that kind of voter referendum also trumps, one of the three other options. In response to this, the effective date of the law and its complexities, we have proposed, and which you are considering tonight, this petition. It is comprised of two parts. The one part is to amend Section 2B to define cannabis establishment uses for the purposes of the Danbury zoning regulations. And those uses and those definitions that you see in the petition mirror those in Public Act 21-1. We use exactly the same language. The second part of the amendment is to amend Section 10J to establish a temporary moratorium on the acceptance of any application, any permit, any amendment or petition related to these establishments in order for the city to consider the adoption of regulations for the local control of those uses. The law is complex. Obviously, it's 300 pages, of which, probably less than 20 have to deal with zoning regulations, but they're complex no matter what. And the Complexity of the Act and the controls adopted therein to carefully regulate those uses at the state level supports the premise that the uses should also be carefully controlled at the local level. And therefore, the amendment to 10J to establish the temporary moratorium is justified. As noted in the petition, the effective date of the moratorium would be the date of filing or publication of the adoption of these amendments with the town clerk, and is proposed to last for 1 year or sooner upon a future action of the zoning commission. So the question is, what's everybody else doing around the state? And it's a wide variety. There are, municipalities, this is very new. There are municipalities considering moratoriums, some that have already adopted moratoriums, some that have prohibited all these cannabis uses, and some that are intending to do so. And then there's some municipalities that are choosing or considering absolutely doing nothing. The landscape changes daily. We're notified of seminars and webinars, sessions set up even later this week to provide guidance to municipalities relative to the new law. The use of a moratorium for a defined period of time to evaluate new laws and to develop new regulations on a specific land use or a zoning issue is not new to Danbury. In fact, in 2012, when the palliative use of medical marijuana laws were adopted, we also, in the zoning commission, approved a limited, again, a temporary moratorium so the city could evaluate that 100 and something page document. It gives the time to the city to evaluate the complexities of the law as it relates to zoning and land use, and is in effect kind of a pause button. I'm just going to remind the zoning commission that last year you approved an amendment that allows currently 2 medical marijuana dispensaries, which is one of the 9 licenses in the law in Danbury, subject to these additional use regulations and a special exception and site plan process. Production facilities or facilities licensed by the state to grow, produce, or manufacture marijuana, aka cannabis, have been and currently are prohibited in Danbury. So again, taking the time to kind of look and see what this new law means, what it could mean to Danbury, what our options are, is we feel the right course of action. So we would respectfully ask that the zoning commission approve the petition, which would define the uses and establish the moratorium. If the zoning commission and members have any legal questions on the Zoom call tonight, Robin Edwards and Dan Casagrande from the Office of the Corporation Counsel, and they can answer any legal questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Calitro. Commission members, at this time, do we have any questions of Ms. Calitro? Mr. Malillo, please.
Yes, Ms. Calitro, I just want to, for the sake of some of our newer members, while it's rare that we do moratoriums, it's not unusual to do moratoriums. I believe we have done a moratorium, for example, regarding development height restrictions in the Main Street area within the last 15, 20 years, as well as the establishment of medical marijuana when that legislation was first passed. Is that correct?
That's correct. Not just the medical marijuana. Prior to that, I think the one just before that was having to do with design and layout in the multifamily zones and the RMF zones and setbacks and distances and things like that. So yes, they have been, and that's the section 10J that we've kind of used for that over the course of the years.
Thank you, Ms. Calitro.
You good, Ms. Malillo? All set?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Commission members, anything else at this time? Ms. Fay, I see your hand, please.
Thank you. Does the moratorium, if it were approved, would that affect the dispensary as one of the approved uses in Danbury?
It would affect okay, so we allow two right now. One got approval. The one on Mill Plain Road has approval and has zoning permits. So they can continue to, undertake their improvements and open. The moratorium would affect a second dispensary, yes.
Thank you.
But no effect on the Mill Plain Road establishment.
No effect unless they intended to change their licensure. They couldn't change their licensure, but they could open as a dispensary. That's correct.
All right, changing their licensure to include recreation.
Retail, that's correct. Well, there's a couple issues associated with that, but yeah, they could not do that.
Thank you. Commission members, any other commission members at this time? Mr. Jowdy, you have your hand up? No, he's adjusting his.
I got a question. How long does this last, this temporary,
So that's a good question. So so a moratorium has to be for a defined period of time because they, obviously the laws don't want you to just, say no they'll hit the pause button forever. So they are always limited in a time frame. The language in this proposed moratorium is for 1 year or sooner. So should we come back to you within the year and propose new regulations and you adopt them, the moratorium would be over before then. So could be a matter of months. It could be a little longer than that, but it wouldn't be longer than a year.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Malillo, please.
Just to follow up on that, Ms. Calitro. So what this moratorium would do, it would prevent somebody from being able to submit an application. Because I know where people might be sitting here thinking, well, what's the big deal? Sales can't go into effect until July of 2022. But they could submit an application with your office prior to that date, and this moratorium would prevent the submission of those applications, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Malillo. Thank you, Ms. Calitro. Commission members, any other hands for Ms. Calitro at this time? Any other hands? I would now ask for anyone wishing to speak in favor of this petition. Mr. Mayor?
Chairman.
Good evening.
Zoning Commission, thank you for hearing me tonight. I'm here to speak in favor of the moratorium on receiving and accepting applications for up to a year on cannabis establishments here within the city of Danbury. As Ms. Calitro explained in her document and the Planning Commission's report also expressed, this is a large document. It has and covers many, many areas of control here in the city of Danbury and in other municipalities. And I'm here just to support this moratorium to give our department heads and directors and planning commission zoning to be able to thoroughly review this document and come up with a solid, dependable plans for the city of Danbury as we move forward through the cannabis arena. I think that just the sheer size of this bill and how soon it happened just doesn't afford us the opportunity to really study this with the concern of the health, safety and welfare of the public that we serve here in Danbury. So I encourage commission members to please carefully consider this moratorium tonight and to please give it a positive recommendation at your earliest convenience. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mayor. Commission members, are there any questions of the mayor at this time? Commission members? Thank you, Mayor. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition?
Mr. Chairman,
I hear, but I don't, there he is. Councilman Rotello, please.
thank you, sir. For the record, Paul Rotello, 13 Linden Place, Danbury. Just, to be clear here tonight, we're not going to decide whether we can smoke pot in Danbury or not legally without fear of being busted or edible or anything like that. It's been decided by the state. I wanted to say it was decided by the state. We've been able to do this 4 and 20 days ago, but we couldn't have a meeting on Saturday night. So I have to say 4 and 23 days ago. We've been able to do that legally right here in Danbury. What I'm going to talk about tonight is a little bit different. It's more germane to the moratorium, which has a lot of parts to it. I'm mostly concerned this evening with some of the financial aspects. You'll probably hear some comments tonight, or you will over the next couple of months, about how there's going to be a lot of money on the table, about how there could be a windfall, there could be this, there could be that. So I'd like to get into that a little bit before you guys make a decision. I think it's important to explore some of these unknowns. It's been reported that in about 5 years, the total retail pot sales in Connecticut could be as much as 355 million. That's statewide. That's not now. That's not next year. That's 5 years, 6 years from now. It's an estimate. Not anytime soon, but sometime. And it sounds like a lot. And with the municipality standing to receive some 3% of that, it seems like a lot. The cities and towns will be using wheelbarrows to bank the loot. But if you look at that, it's not really that much. 3%, because that's for the first time in Connecticut history that I can recall anyway, we will be able, municipalities, when I say we, municipalities will be able to share in the sales tax. We've been trying to fight for that, especially in Danbury, we're a retail mecca here. All of the sales tax at present goes to Hartford, and we have to beg to get that money back. And we leave a lot of money in Hartford that never comes back here. They're going to give us 3% should we decide to participate. But that 3% of 355 million is 10,600,000. And if you spread that out over the citizens of all 169 cities and towns, it works out to, get this, $2.95 per person per year. $2.95. I bought a sundae a few weeks ago at a local ice cream shop. Cost me $9 with a tip, but it was good. It was really good. Still, the supposed windfall would take 3 years to pay for one sundae. 3 years, some windfall. All right, let's try to figure out what Danbury's haul would be. Again, using that baseline reported $355 million state estimate. And there's about 85,000 residents here, so that works out to about 251,000 for the city. That's $251,458, or 85,000 times that 295. That would be Danbury's portion, assuming it was spread evenly. I don't think anybody is seriously saying that legalized pot won't come without enforcement issues. All those smokers emerging from the woods and basements of their previous dens now out in the open on the streets and cul-de-sacs, under your windows in parks, kiddie parks. If the city has to hire a cop for this, and let's remember, like in a bar situation, you basically have liability with the bartender and the bar owners. They cannot, by statute, allow people to leave who are intoxicated. If an accident were to happen, they would be liable for that. But if we have a public place for pot smokers and something happens, we may be liable. That's one of the issues that we're going to have to look at during the moratorium. So if the city has to hire a cop for this, and for the sure to come impaired driving, it could take half of that $250. Generally, a cop with benefits runs about $125. If the city hires 2 cops, it'll take all of it. And if we hire 3, we're losing money, we're underwater. It's been estimated that some 14% of Connecticut residents use cannabis, meaning that more than 85% don't. So we could be looking at the very real possibility of the vast majority of Danbury residents subsidizing the marijuana habits of a minority of users. And I think that really runs contrary to the intent of the statute, or it sure as you know what should. Okay, you can say, hey, Councilman, since some towns won't allow a dispensary, and we know that that's true, at least at this point, those that do have them will sell more and make more, and maybe that's true. Still, that comes with different issues like traffic. But here's the thing, we really don't know who will or won't allow it, and it depends on some big suppositions. Sharon alluded to some of them. And more to the point, it depends on referenda. The city leaders can say no, the people can say yes, and the people override the city leader. And this happens. This is not a speculative thing. It happened here. The city leaders did not want to buy Terrywile, and people forced the referendum, and the city had to buy Terrywile. It's now, people look back, it's like the best decision that was ever made, but that was forced by the people, not by the politicians. They didn't want to do that. And, we look at Terrywile now as the jewel of the crown. So not only can it happen, it has happened, and it's happened here. Then there's New York State. It's not a stretch to foresee a dispensary along the border. Southeast certainly, or definitely on 6 when the West Side Interceptor goes through. And that could be right there, basically past Starbucks in Farrington. Bethel, maybe. They haven't said no. They were right there with medical marijuana. Brookfield, maybe not, but I think New Milford would jump. South, I don't think Reading or Ridgefield have much interest, but Wilton would or could, and Norwalk certainly will. So we could have intense competition immediately to our east and our west, then to some extent to the north and down some to the south, a bit farther, Waterbury, Torrington, Southbury even. These smaller towns can allow sales and basically ban smoking without having to build pot parks. So they kind of have it made. If larger cities regulate smoking, they have to provide a public place for that. But the smaller cities don't. So by taking advantage of that statutory loophole, they get upside with very little downside. So why not? The point being that the $2.95 figure that I alluded to earlier, based on the state's estimate in 2025 or 26, that $251,000 in tax revenue might actually be a lot closer to reality than not. And it may be even optimistic, could be less. And frankly, if accurate, it's a drop in the bucket compared to what our liabilities might be. I alluded to some of them. It's a supposition. I freely admit that. It's based on a few estimates and can be taken as such. But it's no less valid than other estimates you may hear tonight, absent detailed evidence. And that's in short supply, or to be more precise, non-existent at the local level. We just don't know. That's the point of the moratorium. The fact is, we may be committing our city to years of money lost on this experiment. We're already spending, I don't know how much on staff time and legal fees with nothing coming in. The taxpayers are subsidizing this right now, tonight. People who have, for whatever reason, decided not to spend a good portion of their free time intoxicated are, thanks to the state, being tapped to pay for that of a minority of users who are, right now, again, tonight. Will it continue? Will this outlay be an investment that pays big dividends, or just the first in a continuous stream of taxpayer funds flowing down the drain? My take on the moratorium, to wrap this up, is yes, approve it, and then let's have, among other things, a monetary study that can give the people some insight as to what the true financials are going to be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission.
Mr. Rotello. Commission members, any questions of Councilman Rotello at this time? I would like to ask a question. The numbers that you were speaking of came from a state estimated report?
Yeah, they're widely reported in media. The genesis of those numbers, I assume, is the state, but I can't stipulate that. But they've been widely reported, 355 million. And if you divide that by 3.6 million, it's 295.
See, that's one of the things I think it takes time to study and digest and see exactly what we're looking at from an economic standpoint, which was not provided to us yet because of the complexity of the several hundred-page document. Thank you very much.
Well taken.
Anything else? One more shot for Councilman Rotello? No. Thank you, Councilman Rotella. I
Thank
see
you.
firsthand, Ms. Waller, would you like to speak in favor of this petition? Oh, let's get you, unmute your mic, please.
Did I do it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, I don't know. This is the first time I've spoken at one of these.
it's okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I tend to approve of Mrs. Calitro's moratorium, and I hope that you all approve it as well. My point is I would like you to look further than just Connecticut. I know Colorado has approved cannabis a long time ago, and they have had a boatload of problems that people who live out there know about, but people who live back here on the east have no idea. And I have a friend that lives in Colorado Springs and bemoans to me all the time about what's going on out there. I would love you to do a little bit of just a semi look into whether the money flows as it said it will, or whether it has affected them. I mean, driving under the influence, it's very hard to tell. I was pleased to see the article in the paper the other day where it discussed training an officer to try to figure out whether you were high on marijuana or high on alcohol. We need to find some of those tests. And I'm not a good example. I don't drink and I don't smoke. So I'm one of the folks that Mr. Rotella just mentioned that I'm going to end up supporting these folks. But it's not for that. I'm more worried about what my roads are going to be and what shape people are going to be in and that sort of thing. So I would like to see the moratorium, and I would like, had Connecticut not approved it yet until we did a lot more studies on it. So thank you for listening.
Well, thank you, Ms. Waller. Commission members, are there any questions of Ms. Waller at this time? I don't see any. Thank you, Ms. Waller.
Thank you.
To speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition?
Mr. Chairman.
I hear a voice. Who is that, please? Oh, Perkins. I see your hand. Go ahead, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Dwayne Perkins, 22 Main Street. I too am a member of the Danbury City Council representing the 5th Ward. It wasn't too long ago where I had a brief conversation with a state representative, and he asked me my opinion on what I thought about the moratorium. You know, I support it for the reason that we could be best served by having an opportunity to fully vet the very complex legal document. I read through pretty much the whole thing. I guess it's like 100 or 297 pages or so, packed with legalese. But I forged my way through, and everything that I've heard tonight, it's all true. It's layer upon layer of complexity. You have dispensary concerns, you have cultivation and production concerns, there's delivery concerns, there's law enforcement. I mean, the aspects of law enforcement haven't even really caught up to the technology of determining various levels of THC. So it's all very, very complex. And I think that it would be best served to tread lightly as we go forward. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that some of us were discussing the medical marijuana, albeit edibles, in the same sentence with hamburgers and donuts. So that just proves to me that we have a long way to go if we're going to have that type of conversation right from the outset. And I just want to, I guess, be a cap on the rabbit hole, you know, a blanket on the shiny object, just a beacon of light so that we can stay on track. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Well, thank you, Councilman Perkins. Any questions of Councilman Perkins at this time? Councilman Perkins, actually, something just to feed off of what you were saying, we all watched, or those that were watching, watched several generations of this for a few months go by, and with many modifications and alterations, and we don't get every time there's a new proposal, we don't get them redlined. So we don't know what's removed and what's added. We have to go through every single document, paragraph by paragraph over and over and over again. Then when we get the final one, we have to study it further. So there were numerous proposals that were made. So we are now left with the final one that was approved up there. And yeah, it does take some time. So I understand that. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Next page, nobody. I don't see or hear anymore. Joanne, Ms. Reed, anything?
I don't see anybody else either.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to those wishing to speak in opposition to this petition. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? I see someone that says M. Deary. Please unmute.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, if
Can you hear me all?
Yes, state your name and address for us, please.
My name is Mike Deary. I live on 49 Benson Drive up here in Mill Plain.
Well, thank you very much. You have the floor.
I just want to say that first and foremost, thank you for the meeting. But I have to say, I'm a little concerned about the agenda on this commission here tonight. First and foremost, Mayor Cavo, 2 weeks prior, during a radio interview, brought this whole concept of a moratorium up on air. And the way that it was presented to the people was that you guys were being inundated with applications and that this was just overwhelming. But when pressed, actually said that he had not received any applications at that time from his office. So I find it really interesting that there's a major press for a pause here when the reality seems to suggest that there hasn't been any applications or a deluge of applications received by the commission at all. Secondly, as you guys have mentioned in this conversation this evening, you took up the medical dispensary issue in 2012. I live on Mill Plain Road, or off of Mill Plain Road, excuse me. And that dispensary is now still not there. And it's 8 years or so from the time that you guys took up that motion with another moratorium. I don't see a reason for this moratorium whatsoever. It seems as if from the agenda and the speakers this evening that there is the older biases regarding cannabis users and cannabis use in the city of Danbury. I've heard the old adage of speak to folks in Colorado. I'm not sure if anybody's driven up to Great Barrington, but that town is a wonderful little town, and they've had a dispensary on our border for years now. Not a problem. And in fact, that company has now expanded to multiple locations within the state of Massachusetts and also into Maine. The gentleman who spoke to the money.
Oh, Mr. Deary, your mic went off. Mr. Deary.
They employ at least 40 individuals full-time, full benefits. They're paying those individuals a decent salary. And so they are bringing jobs as well as consumers into the town of Great Barrington. Danbury is situated on 84 on the border of New York, and New York with its moratorium or its foot dragging has offered Danbury an opportunity to beat them to market and also bring in those consumers from the other states. It's short-sighted, in my opinion, that the zoning commission is thinking about putting a pause for over a year. The voters have acted on this. We've been waiting for it for a long time to be approved in the state of Connecticut. And yet this commission seems to have already decided that they're going to approve this pause for the sole reason, and what is effectively 20 pages, as was described by the folks in this meeting. 20 pages is what this commission is concerned with regards to that law, not the hundreds of pages, but the commission is 20 pages. The other aspects of the law involve police and so forth, as was mentioned. But I would also add that the police have been arresting and evaluating drunk drivers, stone drivers, people in possession of marijuana, and all of the other drugs, etc., on the roads today, and they have for years. It's not something that all of a sudden new police officers are going to need to be hired for, especially considering they're no longer going to be needed to prosecute small-time marijuana users. So that whole aspect of the money and having to hire officers seems silly to me, as well as the dollar values that are being cited. And I appreciate you bringing it up when you asked where those numbers came from. And the answer was cited wildly in media. I'm sorry, but I expect more from a councilman here in Danbury. If you have facts to offer to the commission and to the public, then they should be backed by sites, but not just opinions. But again, I'm against this moratorium. I don't see that there's a need for it. If the commission cannot, understand 20 pages, which is what effectively that affects the zoning in this town, and they need a year to do it. And the last time this was done again was 2012, and the dispensary is still not here in the town of Danbury. I think that this is cutting our nose to spite our face. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman? You're muted, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I just noticed. Thank you, Mr. Derry. I would ask commission members at this time if they have any questions of Mr. Derry.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question preceded by a little bit of comment?
Yes, absolutely.
So I just wanted to bring for Mr. Deary's benefit. He mentioned the moratorium on medical marijuana, which we put in place back in 2012. And I'm sure he did his research. I don't remember the exact date, so I'm going to go with that date. But the moratorium that was put in place, if I remember correctly, gave us time to look into it. The city originally put a full ban on dispensaries, not allowing any medical marijuana dispensaries, with the stipulation that only if it could be dispensed through a pharmacy could medical marijuana be dispensed in Danbury. And then within about the last 2 years, we received a petition to amend our regs to allow it. And that was after we had seen what Bethel had done. And so I think the moratorium gave us some time. They actually had the person go to Bethel originally, and then he needed to expand and then relocated to Danbury. And so while there is no dispensary over in Mill Plain Road, that is a new application, and it was only really come up within the last, adjudicated by us within the last 6 months. And so I was just curious if Mr. Deary was familiar with that aspect of it.
Thank you very much. Commission members, any other questions of Mr. Deary at this time? I don't hear anyone, and I don't see any hands. Thank you, Mr. Deary. I would now ask if there's anyone else wishing
There are
to.
3 people with their hands raised.
Oh, I don't see any hands.
Carl Torella.
Another page? Hold on.
Okay, go to the other page. Carl Torella and Hector Gerardo and Emily Sabo.
Okay, Mr. Torella, would you like to speak in opposition to this petition?
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Please do.
Carl Torella, 7 Forest Ridge Road, Nyack, New York, 10960. Many of you know me. My name is Carl Torella. I'm the general manager of Acreage Holdings, which operates 3 medical marijuana dispensaries or facilities in the state of Connecticut, one of which is Compassionate Care Center, and it's slated to relocate to Danbury on August 16th. Regarding the moratorium, I understand why you're proposing it. While I don't necessarily agree with it, I understand it. I submitted a written testimony opposing the moratorium and wanted to stress the point that recreational cannabis will be in Danbury, whether there is an establishment selling it in the city or not. This is because 2 main reasons. 1, neighboring towns or cities will be selling it, and 2, delivery is allowed through the state regulation, both of which the city has no control over. I would love to work with the city as an informational resource to develop regulations based on past experiences, both nationally and within the state. As recreational cannabis sales are scheduled to begin May of 2022, I asked the Zoning Commission to consider a shorter moratorium of 6 months and extend at that point in time if needed. So I appreciate the efforts here by everyone, and I just wanted to say I do oppose the 12-month moratorium, but I ask to consider a shorter moratorium in place.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Torella. Commission members, any questions of Mr. Torella at this time? I see Mr. Melillo, please.
Yes, Mr. Torella, quick question. You had mentioned the testimony. Is that the letter that we would receive from Attorney Mizuko?
Yes.
Would you have any opposition to us then accepting that as Exhibit A under you And we can ask Mr. Haddad to note that letter as Exhibit A, since you alluded to it in your public comment, in your opposition.
Not at all. You can submit it.
Okay, thank you very much. And so that, I think that keeps us from having to read it into the record, but the same point, because since he was representing you, I think you got your main points across from the letter.
Thank you, Mr. Melillo. Mr. Torella, thank you.
Can I,
Please note.
Teddy, can I just ask, can I
Yes.
just ask one question, just something that he touched on, which was deliveries of
Absolutely.
cannabis? I haven't read the law, but that sort of jumped out at me, that you can have delivery of recreational cannabis?
Yeah, so thanks for asking that. So any recreational establishment is able to deliver in the state of Connecticut. So if a neighboring town or city does open up a recreational cannabis site, they are allowed to deliver to any city or town within the state of Connecticut. So basically, if Stamford opens or Bethel opens or whatever town there may be, if there's a Danbury patient that wants recreational cannabis, delivery will still happen to that if they choose, which will in fact still have the traffic and all that stuff. So it will make its way to the city of Danbury, whether there's an establishment or selling it or not. So my proposal is that we regulate it the way that we want to as a city. We earn the dollars, and obviously we come up with those regulations as necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Torella. Ms. Fay, you all set with that?
I am. I'm surprised, but yes, I'm set with that.
So let me do a little bit
Angie,
of here.
Teddy, Angie has her hand up.
Oh, Angie, go ahead, please. Ms. Hylinski.
Thank you. Mr. Torella, you had suggested a shorter moratorium. What, in your opinion, is shorter?
So I think we should go for the 3 to 6 month time frame. That gives us ample time to really look at regulations on how we've regulated certain things like alcohol in the past and apply this to medical and recreational cannabis. We already have medical regulations in place in terms of where you can smoke it, how far you need to be away from schools, religions, all that type of stuff. And because recreation is slated to open May 2022, what I don't want to happen is this go past May 2022 and there's a decision that needs to be made and there's a speed to market that might happen in the other cities that might take away from the city of Danbury. So I propose something shorter to meet that timeline, work hard and rigorously over the next 3 to 6 months to come up with regulations and either decide for or against recreational cannabis. But in my opinion, I think it would be best to figure it out sooner rather than later, because as applications are coming to fruition and DCP, which is the Department of Consumer Protection in the state of Connecticut, starts accepting applications and allowing applications and accepting the lottery, then that's when the applications are going to start to flow through to each of the cities. So that's when the business, the people who are awarded these lotteries will actually start to choose where and when. So having that speed to market and those regulations in place will be a big leader on whether a facility opens and you're able to recognize those revenues and those jobs for the city of Danbury.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Hylinski. Thank you, Mr. Torella. Again, let me get to housekeeping. The letter from Attorney Mizuko on behalf of Mr. Torella is now Exhibit A. It has already been previously publicly posted on the agenda with a link, and that letter has been available and is available for those not only on Zoom, but anyone in the public to gather on YouTube or any citizen just by looking at the agenda and clicking on the link. So I will ask one more time if there's anyone else that wants to ask Mr. Torella any more questions. No. Thank you, Mr. Torella. Anyone else looking to speak in opposition to this
We
petition?
have two. We have two. Hector Gerardo and Emily Sabo.
Mr. Gerardo, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. You're welcome to speak. You have the floor.
Thank you.
Just state your name and your address, please.
So there are two of us here. I've been on hold waiting to get on my cell phone. My name is Elizabeth Guerra, and my address is 2 Deal Drive. And my partner here, my husband here, his name is Hector Gerardo, also lives here at 2 Deal Drive. And we're both going to speak in opposition to this proposal. And apologies in advance. I know we shouldn't apologize for our children, but it's my baby's close to his bedtime and he's kind of wired. So if you hear him,
It's okay, no problem.
it's our babies. Future Danbury voter.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I'm speaking out in opposition and just simply to just reiterate some of the points that were made a little earlier by another Danbury resident. You know, a lot of the points that were made by folks who are speaking in support of, but also specifically about this recommendation makes me question a lot of folks as it relates to recreational cannabis. To be clear, this is about the moratorium, right? This is not about a witch hunt on who uses cannabis and who doesn't use cannabis. The reality is, my partner being a medicinal cannabis user, if I sit outside in the Bethel compassionate care parking lot, there are plenty of people there who, you know, who use it. They use it for a whole sort of reasons, and that's not any of our business, what people do in their own time, as long as people are safe. At the end of the day, this is something, the longer that we take, there are other towns, and what I didn't hear from the presentation that was done earlier by Ms. Colicchio was certainly last week, it was missing from her presentation, is the amount of cities in the area who are saying no or are on pause, but not mention of any cities who outright or towns who have outright said they're going to move forward and agree with this, which is, I think, is not adequately painting a full picture of what's going on around the state and specifically around this county. I do want to remind folks that, you know, Massachusetts said yes, right? And I have plenty of people, we have knowledge of plenty of folks who are living here in Connecticut who frankly go to Massachusetts in order to get marijuana, to get cannabis. It's not something that's completely, you know, foreign. And frankly, as a taxpayer, someone who has children here, the idea that there are any taxpayer dollars that could possibly come back into our town, into our city to improve our schools. I think the numbers that were given, you know, by one of the commissioners, you know, I take issue with simply because you can't, you know, give us a bunch of stats without actual sources to back up any of those statistics. I do know from anecdotal conversations that I've had with superintendents around the state through my job who talk about Colorado in particular and how the improvements on many of their schools and frankly even on the infrastructure because of the taxpayer dollars that have been, or not taxpayer dollars, because of the taxes that have been brought forward because of recreational cannabis. The last piece that I want to make clear to everyone is that, you know, this cannabis bill was not made in a vacuum. The legislators who did this work looked at and analyzed all the other bills throughout the country. We're not the first ones to do this. We're certainly not going to be the last, but certainly we're able to look and learn from the experiences of other states, what has been done well, what has not been done well, and figure out what the best practices are in order to ensure that our state is protected and we are able to benefit the most from this. One of our own senator, Senator Julie Kushner, is someone who worked very, very tirelessly on this bill. And so, yes, this is a thick bill, just like any other bill that of great importance to our state would be. Certainly, there needs to be time to review it, but some of this language is not unique, right? This is the work of the commission. This is the work of folks who are hired to do this work to figure out what needs to be done. But it's also, you know, this is not new. Cannabis is not new to the state. It's not new to the city. And I'm just imploring the commission to not agree to this recommendation.
And then I just want to add that on the perspective of a business owner, Black and brown people have been targeted tenaciously in Danbury for smoking weed and having cannabis in their possession. Before the law passed, people were getting arrested in an astronomical rate. Black and brown people were getting arrested in an astronomical rate here in Danbury. So we, as a town, owe the people that's been arrested a chance to actually make money from this cannabis industry that a lot of white people, like the gentleman from Acreage, a lot of white people from Acreage that's Russian, not even from this country. The owner of Acreage is a Russian guy, not even from this country. And the people of Danbury that have been arrested has to wait on the line and even not even have the chance to be able to make money when they make money off of them by being in jail. So we need to make sure that we are protecting those communities and that we are bringing the revenues that is owed to us, because at the end of the day, cannabis is not a drug. And I heard it in the last planning, zoning and planning commission meeting that they had last week. They addressed cannabis as a drug. Cannabis has been studied by LaGuardia, ex-mayor of New York City back in the 1940s, when Anslinger, the guy that was a racist, the head of of the
Federal Bureau of Narcotics.
Federal Bureau of Narcotics back in the 1930s, he had a vendetta against Black and brown people, and you can actually look at his quotes why he wanted to ban cannabis. It was a war against Black and brown people, and LaGuardia, a mayor from New York City, paid scientists, and it's called the LaGuardia Project, if people want to look at it. And in the 1930s, there were studies about cannabis and how cannabis can not harm but help the community. The studies are there. So if you want to look at studies, the studies are there. The ACLU have done studies. The studies are there. So when we talk about studies, the studies are there. Look at the studies, look at the history of cannabis, and let Black and brown people now make revenue and make money of a plant that we are being jailed for as we speak. States that have legalized cannabis is not legal in states that have legalized, because if you don't have a license, you can go to jail for selling cannabis. So it's not really legal. It's not really legal, and it costs a lot of money to get a license. So a lot of people don't have this money to get a license. So we need to make sure that our people, Black and brown people of Danbury, have an opportunity to actually create generational wealth and create jobs for Danbury that's going to help Danbury in the long run. Because this is a new industry that federally, right now, they what's his name from New York, the senator from the majority leader. No. But whatever. Right now, the federal government are thinking about legalizing cannabis. Schumer, they just put up forth a bill to legalize cannabis federally. So right now, by 2022, I know that we're gonna have federal legal cannabis. So we need to make sure that Black and brown people are making money, especially in Danbury, when we have been harassed, jailed, beat up, killed for a plant that a lot of white people like Acreage are making money from this plant.
Well, thank you very much. Commission members, I'd like to ask you at this time if you have any questions of Mr. Geraldo and Ms. Guerrera. Commission members, any questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Gerardo and Ms. Guerrera. Did I see a hand from Ms. Sabo? Ms. Sabo, please, just your name and your address.
My name is Emily Sabo. My address is 6 Hyde Road, Farmington, Connecticut. I am a business representative with the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, the UFCW, Local 919. Across the United States and Canada, we represent 1.3 million working families. Among many other industries, we are proud to be the official union for cannabis workers. A no vote for recreational sales and cultivation is a no vote for working class jobs. Cannabis careers would come with a living wage, healthcare, dental and vision insurance, vacation, sick time, training, secure retirement, and of course, a voice on the job. Unionized cannabis careers allow young professionals within Danbury the opportunity to join the middle class and contribute to the community. Rather than a moratorium or an outright ban, we propose a town ordinance, one that state law allows for. I can share with the commission an ordinance that was also passed in a town in New Jersey, which also has recreational cannabis and is a bit further ahead than Connecticut. This ordinance lays out application fees. Sorry, I'm a bit under the weather. Renewal fees and a merit-based approval process. The great thing about this ordinance is that it takes the stress off of the council and the mayor from having to pick and choose potential operators. It sets standards that are important to you as a body as to protect everyday citizens, both locals and visitors. The application fees and renewal fees can of course be catered to fit your wants and needs. And you can also decide how many licenses you want of each class and ban those you don't want at all. The merit-based application system looks at standards such as environmental, labor, security, research, local ownership, and other factors which protect not only the citizens, but workers, consumers, and patients. It's a real opportunity to have local control while making sure these companies actually commit to the big promises they make to you and the working people. I hope that the commission will reconsider and begin conversations of opting into unionized careers and strengthening the middle class. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So let me just say again, if I can, Ms. Sabo, you represent the Union for Cannabis Workers.
The United Food and Commercial Workers Union. So we represent retail food, meat packing and processing, and cannabis workers. We represent 1.3 million working families across the US and Canada. Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. I got it. Commission members, are there any questions of Ms. Sabo at this time? Commission members, any questions? Not seeing any. I will say thank you to Ms. Sabo, and I will ask if there's anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to this petition. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to this petition? Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to this petition? Ms. Reed, I don't see any hands, I don't hear any voices, and I actually don't see any more pages. So one more time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this petition? I think we're good to go. So what I will now ask is Ms. Calitro, if she wants to make any closing comments or comments on what she heard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, the petition from the city is two parts. One, to amend Section 2B to define those uses, cannabis establishment uses in the zoning regulations, and then the amendment to Section 10J, which is for the temporary moratorium for the purpose of which is explained in the language. I just wanted to address a couple of things from the speakers in opposition. In terms of the previous moratorium on the medical marijuana, I believe that was enacted in 2012 after that law came into effect. We also defined there was an amendment to Section 2B, which defined production facilities as well as dispensaries. Again, the same definition that was used in the law. And that moratorium lasted yet less than a year. And the department came back to the zoning commission with the language that lasted, 9 years or so up until the amendments proposed by D&B Wellness last year. Again, though that language, which was approved by the zoning commission within that year, prohibited the production facilities, but did allow dispensary facilities if they were sold, as Commissioner Melillo indicated, out of a pharmacy. And we didn't get any applications from anybody for all those years. And then D&B Wellness discussed with the city and came in and proposed, and what the regulations were amended to kind of clarify dispensaries and specifically allow dispensaries with additional use requirements. And that was approved by this commission last year, and subsequent thereto, they submitted applications to the Planning Commission to establish the dispensary on Mill Plain Road. So again, the moratorium didn't last a year. It was for the purpose to review the law at that time. It's no different this time. We're proposing a 1 year or less. Believe me, it's on top of everybody's radar. I could attest to that by the fact that the mayor has established a working group with the city to address all aspects of the new marijuana legislation, not just the zoning, by the numerous webinars, seminars that are being put forward by the Connecticut chapter of the American Planning Association, from the state, from CC, the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, on how to deal with this legislation. So our intent is to come back to you with the options on what we can do and what the impacts would be from the land use perspective. We're not talking about whether or not you can smoke in Danbury or not smoking in Danbury. That's not what this is about. This is about the establishment of uses like any other use in our zoning regulations. I again disagree with Mr. Torello. In 6 months or less, I think it might take 6 months. I really don't know. It's going to take some time to figure out if we're going to allow all of those uses, where they should be located, how far they should be from another use, and what the impacts could potentially be. In terms of the comments regarding what other municipalities are doing, I think I read to you what some were doing, but I'll go through the list if that's what would help. We've gotten some information today that Waterbury enacted a moratorium, Prospect a prohibition, Newtown a prohibition, Greenwich a prohibition, Thomaston a moratorium. Several towns are considering moratoriums. Bethel currently does not permit these uses, and as I understand it, does not intend to. Newtown again enacted the prohibition. New Fairfield, I think, is considering a prohibition, and let me see what the rest are. There's a whole list daily changing from the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities on where several municipalities stand. So it's not like we're operating in a vacuum. We're talking to our neighbors. We're seeing what everybody else is doing, and several communities have just said, let us try to step back and let us try to figure out what we want in our community. This isn't a prohibition. This isn't a, yes, we're opening up the entire city for everything. This is what an evaluation of what either option could mean. Again, as I said, trumped by, as we talked about, a potential referendum. In terms of the workers, I think Ms. Sabo alluded to, not permitting workers or, economic benefits. We're not talking about that at this time. We haven't even evaluated whether, it's a good thing or a bad thing. We're just saying, let us look at what our options are and take a little time to do that. And understanding that the licensure won't occur at the state level till at least next May sometime. And that it is on the top of everybody's radar, in addition to other legislation affecting zoning regulations that came down from the state out of this session. So with that, again, I respectfully ask the commission to consider the petition, again, the two-part petition, to approve the amendments to section 2B and to approve 10J, which is this 10J, which is a moratorium for 1 year or less, to allow us to evaluate this new law. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Calitro. Commission members, any questions of Ms. Calitro? I thank you, Ms. Calitro.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Melillo.
Yeah, I have a question from Ms. Calitro as staff. So I would ask Ms. Calitro just kind of take off her petitioner's hat for a minute and put on her staff hat for a minute, if she may.
She can do that.
Normally we would, after rebuttal or before rebuttal, we'd have an opportunity to ask staff a question. So that's this scenario here. Ms. Calitro, from time to time, people in Danbury get creative with the zoning laws, and they come up with something that can be done, which was an unintended consequence of the results. And that has to be approved. And then from time to time, we recognize that and then have to address it. However, we have to live with that creativity, because once something is allowed under our regs, we can't go back and retroactively disallow it. Is that correct?
Yes, it would then become a if there were a change in the regulations, then it would become a non-conforming use. Right. And I would say yes to the first part. As staff, yes, we found over time that people look at the way the regulations are written, and they're very creative in certain aspects.
Yes, and so so a moratorium like this would be also designed to help, while we can't pre-think any unintended consequence, we can at least try to plug up some holes or some loopholes that might address, to try to at least eliminate some of those possibilities, correct?
Yeah, and basically in some inconsistencies. And here's an example, and I testified to it before. We currently prohibit production facilities. That means you can't grow it today, but the law has a license to be able to grow it as a small cultivator and as a medium cultivator. You can't produce it for medical marijuana, but you're going to produce it for recreational marijuana. Those are the things we need to consider. If you still want to prohibit it, fine, but it should be across the board because in effect, you know, I'm not sure what the difference is. Growing it and manufacturing product is growing it and manufacturing product, whether it's on a medicinal basis or a recreational basis. So today, again, you're not allowed to produce it under a license for medical marijuana. So does that mean now you don't want to produce it for recreational marijuana, or do you want to just change that? And that's what I'm saying about looking at what this means as a whole.
And then one more, so it was mentioned how the debate regarding this bill and the idea of legalizing it, it did not happen in a vacuum. While we were aware of discussion going on really for a couple years now about the possibility of legalizing recreational marijuana, it just recently got enacted really in June. So that was about 2 months ago. The city of Danbury would not have been able to take any action prior to the state legalizing it. Would that be correct?
Well, we have an existing regulation with respect to the dispensaries, but you're right in the fact that it was changing week to week. There was an amendment to Senate bills, an amendment to House bills, amendment to Senate bills. We were reprinting, as Chairman alluded to, a 300-page document every 4 or 5 days as things were changing and came out of the regular session and into the special session. And sections changed and you didn't know if it was in there or whether it got moved to a different section. So that the bill itself was changing in the process, and you just don't know until it's approved and signed by the governor about what you actually have. And so that did not occur until June of 2021, when it was originally proposed, I believe it was in the January session, which would have made it effective July 1st. Had it been approved in that session, would have given some months to figure this out. But then it got carried over, and then it ended up not even in the regular session, in the special session. But the effective date, for all intents and purposes, on many aspects, remained July 1st, which was 8 days later, which put all of the 169 municipalities in the same boat, basically.
So in reality, under normal circumstances, we would have had some time to consider this. And right now, the moratorium would just give us the time that we may have had if it was done under a normal legislative session schedule.
Potentially, yes.
Thank you, Ms. Calitro.
Yeah, exactly. They were looking at it in January with an effective date of July. Actually, the second to last submission or amendment brought it out to January 1st, because they were closing in on July 1st, brought it out to January 1st of 2022. The final one brought it back to July 1st again, which gave us a tiny window, gave everybody a tiny window. So anyway, thank you, Mr. Malolo and Ms. Calitro.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Reed,
someone has their hand up. I don't know if they can still speak or not, but
I don't see a hand. Who is it?
Hector and Liz.
Oh, those public comments are closed. We already had those wishing to speak in favor. We had those wishing to speak in opposition. This is the summation portion by staff. Any other questions of Ms. Calitro at this time? I don't see any hands from any commission members. Commission members, what's your pleasure on this petition?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Commission members, there's a motion by Mr. Malolo to close the public hearing. Mr. Jowdy, is that your hand for a second? Mr. Jowdy is seconding that. Any comments? Discussion? Motion made by Mr. Malolo to close the public hearing, second by Mr. Jowdy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? I do not see any hands in opposition. I heard no voices. So it's unanimous. Thank you very much. This public hearing is closed.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Malolo.
I would like to make a motion to move this to item number 2 under old business for discussion, and possible action.
Commission members, there's a motion made by Commissioner Malillo to move the petition of Sharon B. Calitro, Planning Director, to amend sections 2B and 10J of the zoning regulations in parentheses moratorium on the acceptance of applications, amendments, petitions, or issuance of zoning permits for or related to cannabis establishments and new definitions. Public hearing was opened at 7:30 p.m. It was on July 27th, and it was closed on July 27th, 2021. To move it to number 2 under old business for discussion and possible action. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Fay. Any discussion? Not hearing any discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? For the record, I don't see any hands in opposition, and I did not hear any opposition. So that's number 2. That's made its way under number 2 under old business. If you give me just one moment here. Okay. Commission members, let me just, if I could, before we go back to the old business, under new business, we have a petition that we're going to send it. Ms. Calitro, where are you? We're going to send this one out for referral, right?
Yes, yes, acceptance and referral. And set the public hearing date for August 24th.
Got it. Commission members, under new business, we have a petition of 29 Federal Road LLC and Robert Schmaus, 21, 29, 33-35, 39, and unnumbered lot on Federal Road, K11123, K11125, K11126, K11127, and K11128. For change of zone from mile 40 to CG20. Public hearing is scheduled for August 24th, 2021. I would be looking for a motion to receive this petition, refer it to the Planning Commission for their recommendation, notify all surrounding communities that need to be notified according to state statute, publish it in the town clerk's office and other necessary required publications according to state statutes, and set the public hearing date as it is scheduled on this evening's agenda, which, Commission members, is August 24th, 2021. And this is still subject to change depending on circumstances regarding COVID. Isn't that correct, Ms. Calitro? We're still under that?
Probably not. At this point, it'll be August 24th.
Okay.
I think the 90 days is kind of gone away. So, it will be heard on the 24th.
Okay. So
The question is, we'll discuss later whether we hear it in person or whether we hear it via Zoom. But we'll hear it.
I'm going to make that motion.
So moved.
Ms. Hylinski, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Massey, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not hearing any or seeing any. That was unanimous. Goes over here, this goes over here, and this goes over here. Commission members, number 2 this evening under old business for discussion of possible action is a petition of Sharon B. Calitro, Planning Director, to amend sections 2B and 10J of the zoning regulations, parentheses, moratorium on the acceptance of applications, amendments, petitions, or issuance of zoning permits for or related to cannabis establishments and new definitions. The public hearing was opened on July 27, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. and it was closed on July 27, 2021. Commission members.
Mr. Chairman,
Malillo.
I would like to make a motion to approve this petition and set the effective date on the day of publication in a major newspaper and getting it published in the town clerk's office for the following reasons. The zoning commission sees that the recent legislation regarding recreational marijuana could impair the health, safety, and welfare of the residents of Danbury, and a temporary moratorium would give Danbury the adequate time needed to address any potential health, safety, and welfare concerns that this legislation may have on our residents.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Malillo. Commission members, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Malillo made a motion to approve with reasons, and there's a second by Mr. Massey. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
Mr. Massey. Commission.
Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion? Who said that?
Me, Mr. Malillo.
Yes, Mr. Malillo, go ahead.
Yeah, so just under discussion, I would like to add that there was some concern, I think, for some people have concern regarding the length of the moratorium. And I believe it is typical for us to do a 1-year moratorium, as Ms. Calitro noted. It doesn't mean it has to be a 1-year moratorium. The medical marijuana was less. And should we get, staff get into the language with council and they see that it's something straightforward, they can put something before us in a more timely manner, but a full year does give them ample time to address any concerns which legislation may arise. I know from past experience, having had extensive conversation with Ms. Edwards when I was chairing the commission with regard to the medical marijuana, that every time she turned a page, she went down another rabbit hole and she had to chase and track that down, and that took some time. So I think this moratorium will give ample time for them to do that.
Thank you. Commission members, further discussion. Mr. Jowdy.
Okay, Chairman Melillo, wondering if you would like to add after moratorium on acceptance of applications. Maybe that would be more clear for anyone wondering if that was the case or not. I could be a little redundant on that, but give me your thoughts.
I have no problem adding acceptance of applications.
Thank you, Mr. Jowdy. Thank you, Mr. Melillo. The second, Mr. Mazzi, you'll second with that change?
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
just also for the record that the petition included the amendments to 2B, which were the definitions. So that's.
Yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I meant to put the moratorium and definitions in the motion.
Yes.
Which is in the title of the petition. So therefore, by approving the petition, we would approve everything in the petition.
Right.
Thank you. Motion maker took a recommendation, and it was also the person that seconded that, Commissioner Mazzi, is willing to continue to second it with that addition.
Yes.
Commission members, any further discussion or comments? There's a motion on the floor to approve with reasons and a second. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Any other discussion? On this, we're going to take a roll call. If the commission members would unmute your mics. A yes is yes, and a no is no. Mr. Eriquez, if you recall, I did seat you earlier for this petition, so you'll be called in later and to cast your vote on this. You're eligible. Mr. Melillo.
Yes.
Mr. Mazzi.
Yes.
Ms. Fay.
Yes.
Mr. Hawley.
Yes.
Ms. Hylinski.
Yes.
Mr. Jowdy.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Eriquez.
Yes.
And I will make it unanimous. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9-0. That petition passes. Thank you everyone for your input. We have no additional correspondence. We have no correspondence, but we do have something under other matters. And I believe all of the commissions are taking up this issue, and it's a discussion of procedure for future meetings. I'll call on Ms. Calitro, but I think what this is about is the governor extended our flexibility, or all commissions' flexibility, out to April 1st to continue on the Zoom basis. And I believe it says at the discretion of the chairman, within 48 hours of the meeting, they'll announce whether it's going to be a Zoom or on within the chambers. Ms. Calitro, do I have that correct?
Yes. So the extended the ability to continue with the electronic meetings or
I'll
to
call you right
in-person
back,
meetings.
okay? I'm just ending a meeting, so, okay? No, it's okay. I'll call you back. Bye.
All right.
Yeah, so sorry. Yes, so each agency should have a discussion on what it wants to do. So in terms of the ability to meet in person, the council chambers are under reconstruction. I think they're going to be done by next week for council. I'm not 100% sure, but I understand that they would be available if this commission and or the other land use boards and commissions wanted to go back in June to do in-person meetings. We do have, again, the opportunity to continue these Zoom meetings. There are some additional noticing requirements should we want to continue to do that. You know, it's worked for the last year and a half. And again, it's going to be the commission's decision whether you want to go back and meet in public at City Hall in the council chambers as renovated, or continue to do this, or do some version of one or the other, depending on, what kind of business you have. And I don't think that is, we just have to be cognizant that it may confuse people, but if we're very clear about how the meeting will be held, I think, you can do kind of one or the other.
Well, then let me throw this out if I can to the commission. Why don't we just take it on a, as business comes in, on a petition by petition basis. And if it's something that doesn't require a lot of people zooming in, or I hate to say it, hot potato issue, or something that looks like we're going to get a lot of people for and against, why don't we just take it one step at a time, see what happens. If we
Yeah, we should know. I mean, the council chambers should be ready next week, and then we can see, and you can decide. I don't think we have any business for the first meeting in August anyway. So we have a little time to kind of square things away and determine about the second meeting in August. If you just want to keep it a Zoom and just see how it goes, we can take it up again in August for September. Really just depends on the commission.
So I propose a decision that we make is to not make a decision.
Mr. Chairman?
And I think, one second, Ms. Malone, let me touch on that again. We're not going to have an August 10th meeting, right?
I don't believe there's any business for the first meeting in August. So the 24th would be the public hearing that we just set for that zone change. We have nothing else.
Right.
I don't have anything else.
Okay. Mr. Melillo.
Okay, so thank you. I was actually, I was going to mention, I think we definitely need to, would need to follow the council's lead. We can't get into the council chambers until it's ready. And I would also adhere to the council for allowing them the use of the council chambers for the first time, since it is the council chambers. Like if it's not ready in the beginning of August and they can't meet in August, but it'll be available in the middle of August, I could see us waiting until September to allow the council to break it in, to christen it. With that being said, so I don't know if this would impact the August 24th or not. I have to wonder, I think, the Zoom meetings, they've been working. And for administrative matters, I think they work just fine. But I would like to see us, at least for public hearings, be able to do that much more than public venue again. I think public hearings will or do go a little bit smoother in person than on Zoom.
Thank you, Mr. Melillo. Ms. Hylinski.
I can understand that, Commissioner Melillo. However, with the new Delta variant coming in, I am a little concerned with wearing of masks. How would we address that? I happen to be in the company of several people, believe it or not, from church that I just assumed were vaccinated, and hugged them, kissed them, and a couple had come into my home. And when we got into the conversation of being vaccinated, not vaccinated, they weren't vaccinated, and they came into my home now knowing they weren't vaccinated without wearing a mask. So when do we address that when going back into chambers?
Yeah, and those are all good points. I think we might as well just play it by ear. I mean, to predict at this point in time what we're doing on August 24th or even beyond that.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Melillo.
If I may, I was in City Hall within the last 2 weeks. I went in to see Ms. Reed about something, and I wasn't aware of this. I was going to go back out to my car to get it, but the guard at the door gave me a mask, because the masks are required for public, which includes elected officials when you enter City Hall. So I would imagine that would be the case for public hearings, since I would imagine masks would be required for any member of the public. And I know even with talking with Ms. Reed and Ms. Calitro, when they leave their office and walk through the hallway, they have to wear their masks. So I believe at least until the health director would say otherwise, whatever we did in person, it would be with masks.
That's great. Thank you, Commissioner Melillo.
Yeah, let me just chime for the record. I mean, if you're vaccinated, then you don't need to be wearing a mask. If you're unvaccinated, you need to be wearing a mask on an employee status basis.
As an employee, but as a guest, Phil requires you. Yeah.
Right. So as a guest, different. So I just wanted to clarify what Commissioner Manila was saying. I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, that we just say today, since we're not having in August, the first meeting in August, the 24th, which is a public hearing, but we've had public hearings for a year and a half on Zoom, that we continue on Zoom for at least that meeting, and then decide, we'll see where we are with everything going on. That's another whatever, less, 3.5 weeks, things could change. At least the council chambers will be ready, but we'll be able to kind of gauge what's going on better to make a decision on the 24th of what happens in September. But I would just say, for the benefit of the public, anybody watching, the next meeting, if you agree, would be on Zoom, which would be August 24th, and then we'll take it up then about the September meetings.
Sounds good. So if we can, are we all in do we have to motion this up, or can we just,
It sounds like it's called the chair, according to the governor's executive order, Mr. Haddad. So I would allow you to exercise the decision as chair. I can live with what Ms. Calitro said. Like I said, as long as in my mind we're moving towards, at least for public hearings, getting them back in person sooner rather than later. I don't want to wait until March to have public hearings.
understand? Yeah, we're going in that direction. So why don't we remove the question mark on August 24th and just state here that we'll do that one on Zoom, and we'll see what happens not only between now and the 24th, what goes on in the world, but even beyond that. So that's what we'll do, Commission members. So expect the other Zoom, the August 24th meeting to be Zoom. And let me ask a silly question, since I don't have my calendar in front of me. What's the cutoff for something that may pop up for August 10th, or are we already past that?
We're past it.
Okay, so we're definitely no meeting on August 10th. All right. Are there any other matters, Commission members? Any other matter? I don't see we have anything else for reference only. Any other matters? Any other matters? Anything else on anybody's mind? No? Well, thank you everyone for tonight. And it's 9:11. Who wants to make a motion to adjourn at 9:11?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Kelly, we'll give that one to Mr. Kelly. Who is that? The mayor made the motion? I saw your hand up. Go, wait a minute here.
I just came back on to say goodnight to everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Mr. Kelly made a motion to adjourn at 9:11. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Jowdy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Everyone, I want to thank you all. I appreciate it. And thank you also to Corporation Counsel. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Edwards.
Thank you.
And,
So, Mr. Chairman, Councilman Chianese looks like he just joined us, so he was probably interested in Whitney Avenue. Just want to let him know that we made a motion to deny that petition.
Councilman Chianese, if you're there, Whitney Avenue.
I understand. Thanks.
Okay. All right. And we're, thank you so much.
You're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Later.
One.